Well, welcome everyone to the first ever news live stream. We've got a live episode for you, so hopefully you're joining us on YouTube right now. If you have questions throughout the episode, go ahead and throw them on the comments. We're trying this out today, especially with the recent news that came overnight about Sonny Gray's contract, what this means for the Cardinals offseason, because it significantly changes the ceiling they can have as a club if they so choose. And so, Andrew, welcome. How's your day been so far?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. The Sonny Gray news definitely caught us off guard a little bit. We had the Trevor Rosenthal episode. I think that'll come out on Friday now, so that's going to be really exciting to share with everybody. But yeah, Sonny Gray definitely a step in the right direction. Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn didn't do much for me. Sonny Gray is doing a lot more for me than
Mm,
otherwise. Just with those two, I still think there's a lot more room to go. I don't like the rotation as is currently constructed. I know Sandy and you talked about that a lot the other day, and
yeah.
Sandy's really excited for Sonny Gray to be a part of our rotation. I'm a little less high on Sonny Gray. I still like him a lot, but I think he would be much better suited as our second starter.
Mm,
And with the contract detail, Sonny Gray's only making $10 million next year, which is really, really good
yes.
for us. I've heard a lot of different theories as to like why that's happening. I think Goldschmidt's contract coming up at the end of the season is a potential reason we're probably going to sign him back for less money on a team friendly extension. So that makes sense for the future. But it definitely gives us more money to spend next offseason. And we'll see going into the winter meetings what that means if we're going to make a trade for Tyler Glasnow. I still really want Yamamoto to headline the rotation. I thought after the Sonny Gray signing that we still really needed to learn from the mistake that signing a big time starting pitcher for a long term deal is something that the Cardinals still need to do. And that's something that they haven't really done. And hopefully they can do that. I don't really want Blake Snell. I think Yamamoto is my go to guy.
Mm.
So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, you mentioned again, this is the news off the top of the day or top of last night. It's not really like nothing changed. It's just we got new information on what the contract for Sonny Gray came out as, and it's a backloaded deal. So, and Sonny Gray, if you haven't heard already, is going to make $10 million in 2024, $25 million in 2025, and then set to make $35 million in 2026 with a club option for $30 million in 2027. And so, as Andrew kind of alluded to here, there is a lot of different directions they could go. Real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to Michael, Zach, John, Talik. Thanks for joining us in here, guys. Throw some questions in as we're going through. We're going to go ahead and just kind of riff on the news so far, but we'll jump into some comments as the chat's going. But as Andrew was saying, we don't really know what the direction is the Cardinals are going to go yet. There hasn't been a lot of reporting outside of that initial report on the contract so far, so I'm curious to see what some of like Derek Gold, Keedy Woo, Jeff Jones, John Denton, any of those people will weigh in soon about what this means. But even before we got the news about Sonny Gray's contract, we were getting word from sources around baseball that the Cardinals were not done. They were going to be continue to be active. They were continue to be aggressive following the Sonny Gray signing. And the fact that he's only going to be at $10 million in 2024 opens up the potential for what this could be. So there's a lot of debate about what the budget room is for the Cardinals right now. I project it somewhere between $25 and $30 million right now before they were to even move a Dylan Carlson or a Tyler O'Neill. So they have budget room to move and to work. And so, as you alluded to, Andrew, it could be just to offset some salary because they know they're going to have to pay, or Goldschmidt's coming off the books next year. They're going to have to start paying guys again. It could be to go after a top end arm. I would probably lean toward the trade market of being where that would come from, and a la Tyler Glasnow, Dylan Cease, and then especially if it was someone like Cease, it leaves them a lot of room still to go get bullpen acquisitions. It could be just to go heavy at the bullpen. I'm seeing, and I again, this is pure speculation right now. I'm seeing the Juan Soto stuff pop up again, which I think there's some legs to that. Not legs in terms of real reporting yet, but legs in terms of that makes a little bit of sense. We could talk about that. Or there's another scenario too where the Cardinals just go into 2024 and they're gonna get bullpen arms. Like we already know that. We just don't know what they are yet. But they could approach this offseason, get those two bullpen arms, and then know that they now have money to work with at the trade deadline. So they patch it together. The rotation and lineup and revamp bullpen should get them into contention by July. and then they can make a deal at the deadline to acquire whatever that need is. So there's a lot of different directions they could go with it. I think we're already getting some questions about what directions they could go with it. Maybe off the top, Andrew, what do you think, just off the top of your head right now, what do you think is the direction they go with now that they have this extra $15 million of flexibility? Do you think they're more so just saving money in this year? Or do you think it's to go after a Yamamoto? Is it to go make a trade? Is it to make significant bullpen acquisitions? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think they're done making moves. Obviously, we talked about that on the last episode in depth. I really, really hope they go after Yamamoto. Blake Snell, also somebody I feel like we could be talking about. I think early in the offseason, Blake Snell was linked to the Cardinals, and he like asked about what it's like to play for the team, and he was really interested in that. So that was
Yeah.
good. I don't know if I'm interested in Blake Snell. Sorry, but it's not um, not really somebody that I think he reminds me a lot of Robbie Ray before he signed with the Mariners. And
Mm,
I think that's not a good sign. He won a Cy Young award right before um, a contract year, and like Blake Snell, it's just kind of I don't know. Not somebody I'm too enthused by. So I mean, if we go out and sign someone, that'd be really awesome. I do think that you're right though, and this kind of does set the stage for Tyler Glasnow. Do I like it? Yes, I do, but that just kind of makes it so that we kind of have to go through this again next offseason,
yeah.
which isn't ideal. Like we'll have Sonny Gray, we'll have Steven Matz for another year, we'll have Miles Michaelis for another year, but then we'll have two more rotation spots to fill.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the internal options with Tin Can, Scorsefo, Roby, those guys come up and they make an impact next at the end of next season, and then in spring they can prove themselves the following year. But I also really like next year's free agent class for pitchers. I think Garrett Cole has an opt out. Corbin Burns is a free agent. Brandon Woodruff. We don't really know what's going on with him, but Walker Buehler. There's just a lot of guys that we can go after next offseason. I don't really want to do
Yeah.
that. It kind of stresses me out to have to think about, oh, we're going to go after pitching. Because if you think about that, if we're going to go even a year further, which I don't really know how far in advance we're thinking, but then Michaelis expires, Matt's his deal is done, and
Yeah.
then Sonny Gray has like 1 year left with another club option year after that. So I really want someone to headline a rotation that's going to be here for a long time.
Mm,
And we got some questions on if we think they'll go after Yamamoto. I
yeah.
think he's being linked to the Yankees a lot right now, which is good because I think his agent wasn't really that happy with what the Yankees had to say about Stanton, and he wanted Stanton to come to St. Louis, and he's spoken highly of St. Louis. So if he's listening closely to his agent, then yeah, that's good. But the Yankees did give they reserved their number 18, which is a big deal. That number is a big deal in Japan. They left that. They didn't give it out to any of their rookies last year. They had a lot of
Yeah.
top prospects come up. They could have given it to one of them. The Cardinals, we did give it to Jordan Walker, which is, I mean, Jordan Walker is great, but I mean, if Yamamoto comes and he's like, I
He's
won't
moving
sign
off the number.
you give number 18, like, sorry, Jordan, but yeah, we need that pitching. So
Hmm.
I feel like he can go back to. I think he wore number 22 in AAA, and Jack Flaherty's not on the team anymore. So
Yeah.
um, just give him that. But yeah, we're
Yeah.
getting some more questions on bullpen
Yeah.
arms.
Let me
I
jump
think
in on the
Adam
Yamamoto.
Ottavino was the name. Oh, yep.
Oh, I was
Go ahead.
gonna real quick before you go bullpen. I'm gonna jump in on the Yamamoto side of things. I think it's interesting that it hasn't been shot down by anyone really yet. Like, there's been a lot of comments, and again, this is not me saying they're gonna get Yamamoto. I think this is just saying that they're going to continue to check in on him because we don't really know what's going to happen in his market. And again, this financial flexibility, it makes it really, really tight at the very best until they trade an O'Neill to make a Yamamoto work. But you can start to see how that potentially happens. But I think it's interesting. Katie Wu, people were citing her the other day saying that the Cardinals are for sure out on Yamamoto, and then she quickly fired back, was like, nope, I did not say that. And then today, she even indicated that she started to change her tone a little bit about the Cardinals adding more to the rotation. Now, I don't think that means the Cardinals are going to do that. I think I see a comment in here about John Denton being pretty, on the Bernie show, saying that that they're pretty strongly going to be done with the rotation upgrades. I just don't think that's like for sure true. I actually think what's happening now is the Cardinals have opened up their options. They're going into the winter meetings with their needs already met. They have their one of their frontline guys, and they have the back end depth at the rotation. So now they can go in to a Yamamoto negotiations, and they don't have to make the deal happen because they already have options in play. They can go approach the Rays about Tyler Glasnow, and they can make a deal if it makes sense. But if it doesn't make sense, they can walk away from the table. Same with the Dylan Cease, same with Logan Gilbert, same with the Marlins arms, same with whoever X pitcher you want to throw in there. The Cardinals now have leverage in negotiations. So I think they're open to a lot of things. I think they're open to significantly upgrading the bullpen and making that the focus. I think they're open to adding a couple of bullpen arms and adding a starter. I think they're open to waiting this out till the deadline. I think they're going to go after a lot of things. The thing I will say, I'm going to throw up the comment now. It's thanks, Dad. I agree with you on this one. Tyler Glasnow and a focus on the bullpen help, I think, is the most realistic primary option. I did a little bit of this on Twitter last night, so you can go look at my thread on this. But early on in the offseason, the Cardinals reported interest in Sonny Gray was strong, and the volume was strong. And John Mozeliak has publicly commented, and now it's been sourced by someone like Derek Gould, that they pretty much only explored the free agent market to start the offseason. They got their arms, and now they're going into the winter meetings, going to investigate trades now. So they haven't looked at Glasnow. They haven't really looked at Cease and said we're out of those markets. They've actually waited to entertain those ideas. So, and then something else that Gould has reported really early on in the offseason is the Cardinals have planned on, if the Rays were going to let Glasnow be available, they were very interested in having talks of that. And so I think this all kind of points to they have covered their needs before the winter meeting. So now they get to go into all these conversations with other general managers, other agents, have their needs met, and now they can go after those wants. So they're not forced to any moves. I don't think they're tied. I don't think they're tied to Yamamoto. I don't think they're tied to the idea of Glasnow. I think they're waiting out to see what the best possible options are. So that's kind of where I stand on it right now. I really think Tyler Glasnow makes a ton of sense. You now have that rotation certainty with Sonny Gray, Gibson, Michaelis, and Lynn. So now you can afford to have an injury risk like Tyler Glasnow in your rotation. And what it does is it significantly raises the ceiling of this team. Their moves so far this offseason have made them from a low 70 win team last year to should be a low 80s win team, maybe a mid 80s win team. Sneak into the playoffs if things break your way. Trade deadline upgrades gets you to the playoffs. What Glasnow does, or a Yamamoto, but a Glasnow feels more realistic, is he raises the ceiling of now you could be a team that low 90 wins. And when you get to the postseason, you've got Glasnow, Gray, and you've got one of the best lineups in baseball. That's a dangerous team. So that's why I just think Glasnow makes so much sense. But yeah, the comments are flying in. So guys, we're going to try and get to as many of them as we can. Thank you for throwing these in. I think you were going to go to the Ottavino comment next before I jumped in there, Andrew.
Yeah, so a lot of bullpen talk. I do think the bullpen needs help, obviously. We have three guys at the top of the bullpen that I'm comfortable with. Ryan Helsley and Jojo Romero, I think top righty, top lefty. Helsley's going to close on most days, but we know how he is. I saw a comment earlier about Josh Hader. I would be interested in that potentially. I think that's not in the budget at all to pay a reliever as much as we would have to pay Josh Hader. And also Josh Hader is kind of like left-handed Ryan Helsley. He, I think last year was adamant. The Padres still hadn't been eliminated from postseason contention yet, but he was telling the manager like, hey, I can't throw on a day, or I can't get a 4-inning save. And he hasn't gotten a 4-inning save in a long time. So I think that's pretty much off the table, and he's the top reliever on the market for sure. I'm going to pull up Adam Ottavino's baseball reference page. He was pretty solid last year with the Mets. 3.21 ERA. He got 12 saves for them, so I think he was closing games for them at some point during the season. 4.52 FIP really concerns me. That means he got really lucky, and FIP is often a projection of how your future numbers are going to look. So you might have to overpay a little bit for someone who's not going to be that great, not going to throw that many high leverage innings. Also concerning that he's 38 years old. I don't really want to bring in more old guys for this pitching staff because I mean, Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, Sonny Gray's even like 34. Miles Michaelis is aging. So I'd rather have a couple more young guys. Yuki Matsui, I haven't heard that in the chat yet, but that's a guy that we've been linked to, and I really like him. I feel like he
Yep.
could be a good 7th or 8th inning starter. We always need lefties. Jojo Romero's kind of the only lefty right now, other than like Thompson, who might be a swingman. I don't really know what we're doing with Thompson right now, but yeah, we probably do need another lefty, and I don't think it's going to be Andre Palante, who we have been using as a quasi lefty in the past. I'm not comfortable with that at all.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to throw, like you said, JoJo, John King, maybe Zach Thompson. At that point, the lefty depth's kind of thin. They did try Liberatore at the end, and I think I've heard they've liked the results they got from Liberatore there, so maybe he's an option. Let's keep on the bullpen talk for a little bit. I'm seeing a lot of questions about how the Glasnow trade could look or if a long-term signings. We'll get back into Glasnow in a little bit here, but since we're in the bullpen, let's keep with it for a few minutes. Liam Hendriks as a potential bullpen option, I think that makes a lot of sense. Andrew, I agree with your point that I don't want them just continuously adding a bunch of aging arms, even if it's to the bullpen now. But I do think there is an argument for getting a veteran presence at the back end of the bullpen. Giovanni Gallegos is probably the most veteran of the group right now, and that's a great option. But outside of that, it's Helsley, it's JoJo, it's Thompson, it's whoever else they're going to fit into that fold. So I think having a guy that has closing experience in the past, like Liam Hendriks, makes a lot of sense because we know how Ollie Marmol likes to run his bullpen. He'll pull Helsley out there in the 7th inning or 8th inning if it's a big spot. And I think there is something to be said about the pressure of the 9th, even if it's 7, 8, 9. It's just closing the game. And so having a guy like Liam Hendriks who has experience doing that would make a lot of sense. And then also, as Andrew noted too, when he was talking about Josh Hader, there is concerns with Helsley about whether or not he can go 2 days in a row, if he can be consistently reliable or consistently available. And so having more guys that you trust to close out games makes a lot of sense. I expect Giovanni Gallegos to bounce back a little bit next year. I expect JoJo to be in the fold, but also bullpens are one of the most volatile groups in all of baseball. You can have a top bullpen one year, and then those guys can all flop the next year. One name I haven't seen in the chat yet, if it is in here, sorry, I've missed it, is Phil Mayton. He is someone that's been directly linked to the Cardinals already. Being checked, Derek Gold's one of his recent stories has that. I believe Mayton lives in Southern Illinois, so he's around the St. Louis area, and it's something they've already checked in on. He was with Houston this past year with a 3 ERA and 66 appearances. So he's a guy that has experience pitching in high leverage situations. He's been with Houston in the last 3 years, and so he's got experience being on a contender. Again, he's not a flashy name, but I don't think the Cardinals necessarily need a flashy name to add to their bullpen. I just think they need more depth there, because I think that was mainly the problem. Is obviously you want as many high-end arms as you can at the back of the bullpen, but what was hard was when Helsley wasn't available, then it's like you had Gio and then you had who, or you had JoJo and who. Like, it just felt like you only had 1 or 2 arms you could rely on at any point in the season last year. And so just having a plethora of options in the bullpen so that you answer the wave. So just have plethora of options so that when guys need rest or when guys are inevitably on the injured list, then you have other guys you can rely on. So I would rather them get three pretty good options or 3 nice options than to go all in a one arm, because again, that guy could have a down year, that you could get injured, and then you're kind of stuck again. I'd rather have a lot of different options rolling there. I believe, Joe Kelly is another one I've seen thrown out there. Oh yeah,
I'll hit on real quick. Liam Hendriks underwent Tommy John surgery last August, so he won't be ready for the season, and he probably won't pitch until like August, September. I really like him as a player, as a personality. I feel like that's great. If he does want to come in down the stretch, but he won't be an option early in the season. I mean, Trevor Rosenthal could be a guy that we call upon.
I was about to say, yeah. You'll have to check out our episode with Trevor when it drops. I messaged him the other day, and I was like, man, I feel bad. We just keep pushing it back because we have all this news to cover. But yeah, I'm just going to say, I think he's interested. So John Mozilla, call Trevor Rosenthal if you want some support for the end of the season. But yeah, good call on the Tommy John. Joe Kelly, that's a great buy low option, I think, assuming he's not going to get a lot because he kind of struggled last year. I love the idea, speaking of getting the band back together, of Shelby Miller. He You don't want Shelby? He was one
I
of my
mean, no, it's just funny
favorites.
that we're
Oh my
bringing back
gosh.
all of these, like, we're just gonna
I
bring back the
know.
2014 rotation or whatever with Shelby Miller and Joe Kelly. Like, I don't
It would
know.
be incredible to have Lynn start a game and then Miller and Kelly and Rosenthal come in and relief, and it's like 2024.
Yeah.
But I think Miller, like he had a sub 2 ERA this last year, but he's A, with the Dodgers, and B, he was outperforming his metrics a little bit. So you're not expecting him to be an elite reliever. He doesn't have an elite K rate. I think it's in like the 9s as a reliever, which is fine. But again, I like the idea of getting a lot of those low cost free agents to bring into the bullpen, and knowing that a few of those will probably hit, rather than investing all of the money in a Josh Hader and it going poorly, and then you've just wasted 20 million there. You've done another Brett Cecil type deal. Will
I like
Smith,
Will Smith.
yeah.
Will Smith has won 3 World Series in a row, so why not make it 4?
Oh man, I feel like there's a guy. He's like the Robert Horry of the MLB, where Robert Horry played for like 3 different teams that won a championship, but like he never was like an important player on it. Will Smith's pretty good though. Yeah, I think I'm trying to see if there's any more bullpen options that people are throwing out there. I don't know if anyone off the top of your head comes to mind, Andrew, of other Hector Neris is another option I'm seeing thrown out there right now. Is there anyone like free agent or maybe even trade that you would think the Cardinals could be targeting? Or
I like James Karinchak. That's a guy that we've
yeah,
talked about. Probably get him for like a Tyler O'Neill or something. Cut some payroll, get a high leverage rotation or bullpen arm, not rotation. Also, I mean, I've been told that the Angels are going to contend next year. I don't know why, because they're not getting Shohei back. Mike Trout's only getting older, and Rendon is going to get hurt again. But if the Angels do have a change of heart and they want to rebuild, Carlos Estevez is a guy that I really like over there. He had some ups and downs throughout the season, but he was an all-star. Second half wasn't amazing for him, but pitching goes to Anaheim and it dies. So hopefully he's a guy that I really like. He's played for the Rockies and he's played for the Angels, 2 teams that don't handle pitching well at all.
yeah.
So I feel like his ceiling is still untapped.
Yeah, we can continue the bullpen stuff as it goes through. One more thing that we can address before maybe we talk more about Glasnow or talk about some of these other options that on the starting rotation mark. Are there any potential bench or utility players you could see the Cardinals going after? Just from my perspective here, I do not think they're going to be adding position players right now. Now, again, I really think their options. What was that?
Taylor Motter, bring him home.
Yeah, maybe Taylor Motter will get a spring training invite. I do think because the Cardinals options are so wide open right now, like I don't think they trade Tommy Edman, but if they entertained it and if they pulled off a move that included Tommy Edman, I would definitely see them in the market for someone who can play shortstop. Because that is a lot of eggs to put in the Mason Wynn basket if he's the only guy on the roster that can really handle it on a daily basis. Like Brendan Donovan can fill in there, but he's not a shortstop. And then Thomas DeJC, you hope can be there, but he's more of a second baseman, third baseman mold. And again, you probably aren't going to be relying on Thomas DeJC every day at this point. You got to see more from him, even though I love him. So I think there could be some depth brought in depending on which position players are moved on from. But they're right at this moment, there's just too many guys on the roster. So even if they thin that out, I don't really think they need to add position players. Do you agree, disagree with that, Andrew?
Yeah, I think right now the whole thing is that we have a wealth of position player talent. Like our bench right now would probably be like Alec Burleson, Luke and Baker, Thomas DeJC. I feel like should get a shot at the bench. I don't know how much we're valuing him. I know a lot of our top prospects, we only call them up when we let them start. I feel like what's that guy's name? I forgot his name. This is bad. That prospect who hits like 40 home runs a year, and we just never call him up.
Oh, Moises Gomez.
Yeah, Moises Gomez. I feel like we should give him a shot because he reminds me a lot of Adolis Garcia. And I feel like if you let him go, the Royals or the A's or the Rockies are going to pick him up, and he's going to win ALCS MVP in like 5 years. So I don't know. We should let him play for a little bit at least. I feel like we have plenty of options down in the minor leagues that we can call upon.
Yeah, the one thing I would say about Moises compared to like Adolis Garcia is like Adolis went to Texas and then got DFA'd by them later on too, because like he just wasn't figuring it out. And so obviously like Moises could turn it around. He's got real flaws in his game right now. He strikes out way too much to be a productive Major League Baseball player right now. Can he be a Major League Baseball player? Yeah, he could play on a roster, just not the Cardinals roster right now, probably. But I like the idea of giving him a shot at least. Or if you're not going to, see if another team takes him. But at this point, I think he carries very little value. And it would take like part of the reason the Garcia story is so amazing is that he genuinely turned from a throwaway prospect into a great player. And so that requires a lot on Gomez's part to like turn things around, but that could happen for sure. Let's jump back into the Glasnow stuff real quick, because I've seen a lot of stuff about what it would take to get him and what would be worth it. This is a good conversation starter from Jeff here. Glasnow only makes sense if Edman or Donovan aren't involved. No need to trade one of those guys for an injury risk 1 year guarantee. I fully agree on the Donovan part. I think I'm a little bit more comfortable trading Tommy Edman, and we can get into that. But I think there's a wide range of opinions from people about, at least fans, about what it takes to get a Tyler Glasnow. And I just am of the opinion, and it seems like all of baseball, that it's not going to take the moon to get him. Like, yeah. If they're asking for Brendan Donovan, the Cardinals should hang up the phone immediately. You don't do a deal like that. But I think somewhere in the framework of a Dylan Carlson or Tyler O'Neill or Alec Burleson as an outfield piece for the Rays, potentially a Steven Matz in there if the Rays are interested in adding an arm. Now, a real quick sidebar on that. I think people are underrating how valuable Steven Matz actually would be in a trade. He's making just $500,000 more than Kyle Gibson in 2024, and he's a much better pitcher talent-wise than Kyle Gibson. Part of the reason you pay Gibson is because of the certainty of innings. But if Steven Matz is on the open market right now, people would be trying to sign him, and he would be getting at least what he's getting right now. So again, you're trading for him, so that lessens that value a little bit. You'd rather just give the guy the money, but he's not a net negative. You don't have to move off his contract or pay his contract. There are so many teams that need pitching right now that at the end of the day, there's going to be a team who wants a Steven Matz. So I think the Rays could be that team, because they're going to have to replace Glasnow at some point anyways. But even if he's not including the deal, I would think it's one of the depth outfield bats. So Carlson, O'Neill, maybe Alec Burleson. And then I'd say at most, Gordon Graceffo is like the top prospect you'd have to give up in a deal like that. But it could be more of like Sam Roberse or Ian Bedell, guys like that. One or two of those. I think it's a pretty thin trade in general, because the Rays are not going to eat money. So they're moving off a huge contract. Everyone in baseball knows they need to move him. So that already kind of lessens the value. And then the injury risk, like, there's just a select number of teams that are going to be interested in a guy like that, because some teams just can't afford to potentially lose a starter like that for the year and can't give up capital about it. But the Cardinals are in a position now where they can afford to make that kind of trade. So that's kind of where I would see the package going. I actually wouldn't be opposed to giving up Tommy Edman straight up for Tyler Glasnow. I think it's an overpay, but I think Edman is just kind of like, I think he's going to be really expensive here soon. And if he's hitting free agency in 2 years, and I don't really know why the Cardinals would pay him because of all the infield options they have at this point, and Victor Scott coming up in center field. So I'm okay moving off him with his value being high. Anyways, what do you think about Tyler Glasnow package? What do you think it's going to take to get Glasnow in St. Louis? And do you think it's worth it?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that much. Tommy Edman, I feel like, is somebody I'd be willing to part with, because he's a guy that I want to cut payroll with anyway. And I feel like Mason Wynn hopefully will prove himself in spring. I was actually, when we were talking about bench options, I was going to jokingly suggest we sign Paul DeJong back, but I forgot that he went to the White Sox, so that's not possible anymore. But I see no reason not to part with Tommy Edman. I think Mason Wynn's going to figure it out. He just has to be slightly below average to not be like a detriment in the lineup. And I think a lot of people were mad at Mason Wynn last year. You have to remember, he's like, 21, 22 years old. He came up at a time when the team was doing really, really badly. And I don't really blame him for not hitting that well. I think he'll figure it out over spring and over the season. I think people are undervaluing how impactful he can be. And if you have a black hole at shortstop, you have a black hole at shortstop. It's not the end of the world. The rest of your lineup is good enough to figure it out. And I'd be comfortable with it. Brendan Donovan can even play a little bit of shortstop, have Nolan Gorman at second base, maybe sign a DH. I don't know. But
One that
Yeah,
pitches too.
yeah, maybe. Help out that 2025 rotation, but I I really like Glass now. I I'm a little bit less inclined to trade for him, I think because I want the Cardinals. They never promised this, but I want the Cardinals to land a pitcher big time. When Mozeliak was talking about, oh, we're learning from our mistakes, pitching, pitching, pitching. When he was saying all that, I kind of figured a little bit of that implied they were going to go out and sign a big, big contract with one of the premier free agent pitchers this offseason. Aaron Nola made a lot of sense. That didn't happen. I wasn't that excited for Aaron Nola, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of still on the Yamamoto train. People seem to think he's really good. I think he's really good watching him pitch in the WBC and in the Japanese league. I think he seems like one of the more can't miss guys from over there. And I mean, think about it this way, right? We don't know what he's going to do, but if he's say like even a fraction of like what Shohei Ohtani brings pitching wise, and you're paying him like $28 million a year, that's a bargain, right? So
Yeah.
if you think about it that way, I think some of the foreign guys get a little bit undervalued. So it's possible that it ends up being like Yusei Kikuchi. I know Sandy keeps comparing him to Yusei Kikuchi. Yusei Kikuchi was never the pitcher Yamamoto was in Japan, so I don't know
Mm.
where that comes from. But I think if we get Yamamoto and he's like what we expect, if he's the Kodai Senga, like that's great. And Kodai Senga
Yeah.
didn't sign for all that much. I know Yamamoto is going to get more, but it could be a bargain.
Yeah, I mean, I would love for them to still go get Yamamoto. I know we didn't really dive too deep into that. I think, again, I don't think it's ruled out still. I think they still pursue that market. It just feels like the Mets, the Yankees, the Giants, one of these teams are going to pull off the deal. And at this point, the Cardinals have just locked up money in different ways. I think, again, if we go back and if I could have done this offseason, I still wouldn't have signed Lynn and Gibson. I would have spent that money to go get a Gray and another top guy. But I don't hate the direction the Cardinals have gone. It's just different than what I would have expected. It's not necessarily the wrong way. It just limits their ceiling a little bit. And I do think even with the Sonny Gray money being freed up right now, I think it limits the ceiling of what they can do in terms of getting a Yamamoto still. There's a really good question in here I want to throw up. I think it's a fair point. If we spend big now, this is from Missing Parts, how can we pay a Gorman, Herrera, Walker, etc. as their contracts begin to come up? It's a great point. And I think there's a few parts to this equation. Again, part of the problem the Cardinals need to solve long-term, something they can't solve like this, like they can by signing pitching, but something that they have to organizationally solve in the next few years, or else they're going to be perpetually in this state of patching holes, is they need to start developing young pitching again. Because part of the problem is they consistently have to invest so much money into their rotation to make it playable. And that's just not you can't be paying 5 starters every single year and expect to compete. They can do that right now because they have so many controllable young position players. But like you said, Nootbaar, Walker, Donovan, Gorman, all these guys are going to start making arbitration money, which is real money. And then they're going to hit free agency in the next, like, it's still a ways away, but that's what that day's coming. And so you have to have the ability to spend on those guys. And I'm going to do a quick math real quick here. I believe they are paying almost $60 million to the rotation right now. And that's with Sonny Gray only making $10 million this year. And so I think part of the reason that money will be freed up in the near future is I think the Cardinals do believe that a Gordon Graceffo, a Tink Hence, a Toko Roby, not necessarily all these guys, but 1, 2 of them, or Cooper Jerpy or Ian Bedell, or name X pitching prospect, are going to be able to fill in some of these number 4, number 5 starter roles. And hopefully they could be a number 3, number 2, or number 1. And that saves you $15 million. It saves you another $15 million. It allows you to start moving that money from paying the back end of the rotation or paying for a mid-tier starter and to begin giving extensions to a Nootbaar or to afford arbitration raises to those guys. You also have Paul Goldschmidt's contract coming off the books after this year, and he probably gets a little bit of a pay decrease after this. In 2 years, you have Miles Michaelis and Steven Matz coming off the books. So after 2025, 4 of the rotation spots that are currently filled or off the books. So I think there is money that will be freed up soon to be able to pay those guys. But I think it's a really good question because of the Cardinals continue to strike out on their pitching prospects, and they can't trust guys in 2024 or 2025 to step up and be in the rotation, or 2026. Then yeah, they might have to start making hard decisions on position players because they might not be able to afford to keep them all anymore because they have to keep paying for the rotation. So I think that's a really fair question to ask. And I think it's part of the reason that the immediate need is to get those veteran starters in the rotation right now. But probably the bigger need as an organization right now is to be better about raising up young talent when it comes to the pitching. Andrew, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, that's definitely a concern I have. It's not immediate, as you said, but I think that's why I only wanted to sign like one of the premier starters. I'm fine with Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray is going to be gone in like 3 years anyway. I don't know if he's even going to be in baseball at that point because I think he said he wanted to retire within like 3 to 4 years. So that's perfectly fine for me. Miles Michaelis' contract will be up. Steven Matt's contract will be up really soon. But if you look at all the playoff teams, they all have like one or two guys that they've locked in long term, and they're paying a lot of money. Like you look at the Phillies, they had Wheeler, I think only for another year, but they had him there long term for a long time. The Dodgers, Kershaw's been there forever. They've been paying him a lot. I think they're going to get Ohtani, so that's going to be another guy at the top of the rotation for many years to come. The Rangers, they just paid like six guys a bunch of money. They're probably going to extend Jordan Montgomery, so like that's a bunch of guys that they're just paying long term. Jacob deGrom didn't even play in the postseason, and they just won the World Series. You look at other teams like the Mets; they didn't make the playoffs, but they tried that with Scherzer, Verlander. Kodai Senga is going to be there for a long time. He's going to be their ace probably for the next couple of years. All of these big playoff teams have a guy that they're paying long term, and we haven't really had that aside from like Adam Wainwright. But we kind of just we were kind of doing the same thing with the Dodgers do with Kershaw. We just pay Kershaw, or we pay Wainwright every year until he retired. And you just look at all these top teams, like the Yankees have Garrett Cole, the Red Sox have Chris Sale. Like that didn't go well, but they're still a team that's always there. The Twins had Sonny Gray. They're going to have Pablo Lopez probably for another couple of years. You just look at all these teams. The Astros had Verlander for a long time. They brought him back. They traded for him. You can keep going on and on and on about that. So I do think that we need to lock in another guy long term, and then not like do the Gibson or Lynn or like J Happ, John Lester kind of deals that we've been doing in the past, because it's kind of the same thing every year. Like J Happ is the same pitcher as say like Kyle Gibson. They're both like American League journeymen who have been like around all the different teams. They've been an all-star like once, and they're very similar pitchers. And I feel like once we can get out of the rut of we have to grab these guys for innings every year, then we'll be fine.
Yeah, totally. And you made good points that they're like, when I was referring to the fact that they need to be developing young pitching, it's not that they shouldn't be paying any starters. It's just, it's hard to win when you have to keep paying your entire rotation. But like the teams that you reference that are paying like their entire rotation have like top 5 payrolls in all of baseball, right? It's the Rangers, it's the Mets, it's the Yankees. And if the Cardinals want to go that route, then sure, you can start paying as many starters as you want. But that's just not sustainable for the market that the way they conduct themselves as a market. Yeah. Oh man, if you could see the ticker right now, it's, oh man. Unless the DeWitts want to start paying more money, then yeah, it's just difficult to continue to field a contender at the level they need to when they have to keep investing. And I also think it makes it harder for them to invest in a top end starter because they know they have to also pay the number 4, the number 5, number 3, number 2 starters when you have a few rotation options that you can depend on and the depth behind them for injuries. Then you can start to pay more money toward top end guy because you have that flexibility. I just don't think in a lot of ways they've had that. Now, I'm really glad they were aggressive when after Sonny Gray. I do think he's a top guy, and they paid him top guy money, $25 million a year, like spread out. Obviously, it's 10, 25, 35. That's not a small contract. And so it has the potential to be over $100 million deal if they end up accepting the club option at the end of it. So they finally went and spent big on a starter. So I'm glad that they finally did in that realm, but at the same time, it's just there's an organizational issue here with starting pitching. I think we've all seen it for a while. They're currently feeling the ramifications of it, and it's going to take probably till 2025, 2026 till you start to see if those problems have been fixed at all. Because it's not super likely anyone outside of like a Gordon Graceffo makes a large impact this year. But 2025 is when you can maybe see a Tink Hence or Takeo Roby or Cooper Jerby jump into the mix there. So yeah, there's some stuff to go off of with that. So maybe
I
we
wanted
can.
to bring up Alek
But yeah,
Manoah because I've seen a lot of comments about that. That's somebody that I don't know. I feel like the Blue Jays leadership and like that kind of thing. There have been a lot of questions about like the managerial leadership, the in clubhouse culture, and I like Alek Manoah a lot more now as an option. Now that I've heard what Sonny Gray has to say about the rotation, because I feel like
mm,
I mean if you look at the Blue Jays rotation, they have like Kevin Gossman. I feel like he's not a very fiery guy. They don't have a lot of very fiery guys like Kevin Gossman, Yusei Kikuchi, Jose Barrios. Those guys seem a little bit more tame, a little bit more quiet. I don't really know what's going on in the clubhouse, obviously, but we've heard things about it that aren't the most positive. And Alek Manoah, I feel like he's had some like work ethic questions. He kind of disappeared from the Florida Complex League because he was frustrated. I mean, obviously being sent down to that league after finishing top 3 in Cy Young voting has to be pretty embarrassing for you. But like,
yeah.
I feel like in a rotation with Sonny Gray and Lance Lynn, 2 guys that are probably going to yell at you if you don't put in the work to try to win. They both hate losing. I feel like they could probably fix Alek Manoah because I mean, you heard what Sonny Gray was saying. Like he hates losing, and he looked like he was just angry the entire press conference. Like obviously he wants to be here, but he seems like the kind of guy that's just like locked in the whole time. He carries a baseball with him 24/7. So like, I don't hate it. I wasn't a huge fan of it like a week ago, but I feel like Sonny Gray and those guys could iron him out a little bit.
Yeah, and now too, you're also like even a week ago, if you were hoping to acquire Manoah as the number 5 starter, well, if he doesn't work out as number 5 starter, now you have a hole at the number 5 starter again. At least at this point, Manoah, you're getting and you like I saw Mats for Manoah, which I mean maybe the Blue Jays be interested in that, but I would be more interested in the Dylan Carlson for Manoah or the Tyler O'Neill for Manoah, that kind of thing. Because you're taking a position that or a player that you just really don't need anymore, and you're trading him for a lottery ticket that could be a top end of the rotation starter. And even if he doesn't get back to his full form, but he's like a number 3 type starter, that's huge on the kind of contract he'll have because he's under team control for a long time. And so I like the idea of taking a risk on someone like that. If it doesn't work out, then you weren't really going to use Tyler O'Neill anywhere. You probably weren't going to maximize Dylan Carlson anyway. So why not capitalize on their value for someone like Manoah? So yeah, I wouldn't hate the idea of it, especially if they end up going heavy bullpen. I still think it'd be nice to bring in another potential high upside starter. Or they could go to the free agent market and look at like a Frankie Montas, or they could look at I'm blanking like a Luis Severino, or some guys that are looking to bounce back on 1-year deals. Because at this point, I mean, rotations, people get hurt. It's pretty unlikely that by the end of April, every single one of the current Cardinals 5 starters will be healthy, especially by the time June comes around. It just happens every year. And so to have guys that can pop into the rotation would be a great call. Another one I think was interesting that people have talked about. Sorry, this is the most recent one. I know other people have said it is Brandon Woodruff, which I'm really curious to see how his market's going to play out. I like the idea of kind of what Glasnow got from the Rays recently, which was he got paid like $10 million in 2023, I think, maybe even less than that, and then a significant spike this year. I think something like that for Brandon Woodruff could make sense because he's not going to pitch this year, so I would hate to give him a ton of money this year, but if you backload the contract and you're paying him significant dollars in the year that he's actually playing, I think Woodruff makes some sense there. I think the market's going to be aggressive. I think another club is probably going to buy low on him, or pay, and not even buy low, actually pay him pretty well. But also he's got that, I forget what the surgery is, but the issue that he have with his arm it's pretty significant. That's something that kills a lot of players' careers. So I'm not convinced he's going to be a top end starter when he's back. And so I would have a little bit of hesitancy with that.
Yeah, I saw a comment earlier. I can't find it right now, but it said Yamamoto is the only guy locking up long term, and I agree with that. I feel like Blake Snell not a guy that I'm interested in locking up long term. I feel like he will definitely turn into like a Robbie Ray type and get paid a lot more than he should. And yeah, I don't know. Brandon Woodruff kind of strikes me as like the pitcher version of Cody Bellinger a little bit. I feel like he's going to get paid a lot of money as like kind of a lottery ticket kind of thing. And it might work out, it might not. Bellinger worked out really well for the Cubs, and now someone's going to pay him way too much to have not as good of a season as he had this year with Chicago. But I don't know. Brandon Woodruff could go somewhere and figure it out, get himself a long term deal. I don't really like the
Yeah.
idea of that being here because I don't think he's going to pitch until like June. So that's not something I'm super excited about. But yeah, I don't know if there's any other pitchers that we want to talk about. Someone mentioned
Yeah.
Roki Sasaki with all the
Yeah. I
Yamamoto
think
talk.
that's one of the reasons why I think the Cardinals are going to remain in the talks in Yamamoto. And I think Gold actually brought this up, is that even if they are pretty sure they're not going to get him, you might as well figure out how good your pitch was going to be before you kind of ruled yourself out of the sweepstakes, and you figure out how close were you to getting someone like Yamamoto. Because if you're light years away and it's just still clear that St. Louis is not a destination, they either need to change up their game plan for when a Sasaki hits free agency, or they need to just realize that the Japanese market's not going to work out for them, and they need to move their resources elsewhere. And so I think that's something that they've got in the back of their minds too. Obviously, I don't think it's affecting their current moves that much. I think they're focused on the now, but I think Suzuki's a guy that they could be going after at some point. So one other name, and then we're going to have another episode Sunday, guys. So there's a lot more we can cover here. And obviously the off season's going to be long. So there's a lot of these names that we can get to. Clark Schmidt. I think the Yankees are still a name you want to continue to keep on your minds as Cardinal fans because of their interest in Alec Burleson or Brendan Donovan. I do not see a Brendan Donovan deal happening at the Yankees. They just do not have anything, I think, that would make the Cardinals want to move off of Brendan Donovan. So if a Juan Soto deal doesn't work out, I could see them being heavy players for Alec Burleson or Tyler O'Neill or Dylan Carlson. Even if the Juan Soto deal does work out, they could still do that. Clark Schmidt seems more like someone that'd be in a Juan Soto package rather than an Alec Burleson, Dylan Carlson package. But like the Clayton Beaters of the world, some of their AAA arms make a lot of sense. And then one other comment I want to hit on, I've seen it in a variety of ways when we throw this up, is about Thomas Saggese and Victor Scott. I do think their futures are something the Cardinals are continuing to keep in mind, and it's the reason why they might be open to moving a middle infielder in the case of Saggese. But then I think with Victor Scott specifically, I do think there's an outside chance he can make the opening day roster. I think outside chance, don't bank on it. But I think he's someone they envision being a contributor very soon. And like Andrew said about Mason Wynn's defense at shortstop is going to be so good that you can really afford to have a below league average bat shortstop with how good the lineup is. With Victor Scott, with how much, like with the 80 grade top end, maybe best base stealer in baseball type potential he has immediately, and then also his elite defense in center field, I think you can survive with a bat not being really good out there. Now, what that does for his development long term might not be good though, so I think they're going to try and rush him up there. But I think he's a guy that they have eyes on, that they're probably hoping that by August, September next year, Victor Scott is a significant part of this team, whether it's as an outfielder that subs in and is an important part by that point, or is their center fielder at that point. So I think it's part of the reason, again, you see why Dylan Carlson and Tyler O'Neill and Alec Burleson are available. But yeah, we'll continue to monitor that as well. Andrew, any other last points you want to make or things you want to comments you want to make on? Otherwise, we'll have the Trevor Rosenthal episode coming up, and then we also have our episode on Sunday. So
yeah, I think I'm excited. The Gray stuff got me really excited yesterday because I think that's indicative that they're going to go out and grab another starter. I feel like that's definitely something that is now on the table. But it's kind of like last season with the Wilson Contreras thing being backloaded. I think he made like 10, 15 million last year, but his AAV is like 22 or something like that. So they didn't end up going and using that money for anything else. So maybe Will DeWitt just pockets it and is like, I'm going to go build another Arby's. I don't know. Hopefully not, but like
can't get the banner up.
It would probably it would be very frustrating if that didn't happen. So my expectation is now that they're going to go out and get another starter. And guess what? John Mozeliak, he can say we have 6 starting pitchers. I know he's wanted to say that for a long time. And, if he goes out and gets Tyler Glasnow, then he can finally say that we have 6 starting pitchers. And I feel like that is the ultimate win.
Oh my gosh. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he'll pull Matthew Liberatore, Zach Thompson, or Graceffo as the 6th starter this year. Zach Thompson, I think, applies to that more than Dakota Hudson did.
My conspiracy theory is that we're building a 6-man rotation for the future.
Okay. The podcast is going off the rails now. Well, a couple things. Again, Link's affiliate is in our description. It helps a ton if you're thinking about buying any Cardinals merch, Sonny Gray jersey, or anything else Cardinal related. Click that link and then shop through there, and it helps us out a ton. And again, Cardinals gear is always a fun thing to have going on. Again, a couple updates for the podcast. We'll have our Trevor Rosenthal episode supposed to be dropping Friday, as long as nothing crazy happens between now and Friday. But I don't know, with the way the Cardinals are tracking right now, we might have another emergency pod by then. But I think we'll just get the episode out at this point and wait till Sunday to talk again. So yes, please catch that conversation. It's super fun. Trevor is awesome. We're rooting for him and his battle back to the major leagues. And he's just got a fun story, and he's also a guy that I think the Cardinals could, I don't know, potentially bring to the bullpen. I don't know, not saying, but just saying. So there's that, and then again, we'll be live on Sunday as well. We'll have Sandy back, and so I'm excited to do that. So thank you for supporting the podcast. Thank you for continuing to keep up with this off season. It's been really cool to see the engagement recently, and the podcast is growing. So it helps a ton when you share this podcast on social media with your friends, like and subscribe on YouTube. It helps us out a ton. We just have a lot of big plans for this upcoming year. We're hoping to get some more fun guests on and continue to break down the Cardinals coverage. And so seriously, thank you for everyone who hung around in the chat today. Sorry that we couldn't get to all of the questions. You guys did an awesome job of spamming. We didn't know how this was going to go. Honestly, I was like, we could have 5 people in here. And we think we got up to 50 at one point. And so this is pretty fun. And so thanks for the late notice too. We didn't really give anyone heads up on that, but we typically record at 2 on Sundays. And so if we're ever going to go live, that's a pretty typical time to try and think about potentially catching us on YouTube. We might go live more often now. But either way, I've got more content coming out. Super thankful for all of you guys. Again, you can check out myself, Andrew, and Sandy's coverage over at Redbird Rants. We're consistently pumping out content over there. So there's fun stories going on. And then obviously the podcast, we've got stuff going on here. So anything else you want to throw out there, Andrew?
Yeah, go get your Sonny Gray jerseys. I tried to make one the other day, trying to see if you guys could use the affiliate link, but it's kind of blocked right now. Sonny Gray, number 54. You're not allowed to make that jersey for the Cardinals right now.
Interesting. It's so weird that they do stuff like that. I don't know if you guys can see this. My dad sent this to me. It's a shirt that says "Always Sunny in St. Louis." So I think we need to get that for Sandy. So we'll figure it out. But yeah, seriously, thanks for joining us, guys. We'll definitely see you Friday for the Trevor Rosenthal podcast, and then catch you on Sunday as well. So thanks for joining us.